Okay, I am finally home. Who was I guest today? I need to sit down and think. Maybe some music will jog my memory, yes. There we go. Got it working. That's it. I guess you know what time it is. What's this? I see. I know it must be done. I have to keep this quiet for a little bit. I may be watching. I may be listening. Okay, I'm gonna call my guest and let's get started right away.
Hello, Fetch. It's finally good to meet you.
Oh, yes. Please do come in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ghosts and ghouls. My name is Fetch Arbuckle, and welcome back to the spookiest show around, bringing you the creepiest tales to keep you up at night. If you enjoy my show, give the bell a click to be notified when I go on air. Every Sunday we are live, but today's an exception. I know I've been gone for a couple weeks, but I am back now off vacation. So, now this evening we have a very special guest joining us for tonight's show. Without further ado, let's welcome the man of your dreams, Mr. Sandman.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor having you here, friend. Now, do tell us about yourself and what you do.
Okay, Fetch. So about myself? Really, I'm just trying to get like you. I'm a narrator, and I'm also a writer. I specialize in urban myths and legends. I love anything horror, and especially things that go bump in the night. You know, I've also been told I have a very smooth voice. Smooth enough to put people to sleep. But hey, they don't call me Sandman for nothing.
I'm awake. That was absolutely wonderful. Now, have you heard of the tale of the Wendigo?
I think. But wait a minute, hold on. We can't skip that. What was that sound?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But, let's say the Wendigo was like the distant cousin of the Skinwalker. It's kind of a tragic tale, to be completely honest with you. There was a story about a father and his wife and kids. They were living out in a cabin in the frozen forests of Alaska. One night, they ran out of food. The father went mad and had their way with them. Over time, he got driven insane, and day by day he turned into a monster. Every night and every hour his humanity slipped away, and not too long after, what was left of his humanity was withered away, gone. Forever turned into a monster, forced to roam the cursed woods. A curse that I don't want to wish upon anyone. I lost a brother to it. But anyway, now folks, it's time to dive into tonight's stories. So with that being said, turn off the lights, get comfortable, grab a snack, and then stick it to the tales that await you. Take it away, Sandman.
I don't really expect anyone to believe anything I'm about to share right now. And in honesty, I couldn't blame them for thinking I was completely insane or trying to get attention with wild tales of fancy. Yet, I'll go ahead and share regardless. Perhaps I'll make a fool of myself, but that's nothing compared to what I honestly feel could happen if I didn't at least try. You see, as hard as it may be to believe, I truly feel if I don't share this information, people could truly get hurt, and I couldn't live with myself knowing I had just kept silent. Now, in order for me to warn you, I'm afraid you'll need to listen to my story. I'll try and be as brief as possible, but I can't afford to miss out the details either. It began last year at summer camp. I was having a bit of a hard time with the other kids, and the camp staff really couldn't be bothered to intervene. So, I decided to take matters into my own, admittingly reckless hands. I slipped away from the main camp and into the nearby woods, if only to get away from the constant bickering and taunts. Now, before you ask, no, it wasn't the middle of the night. It was a warm afternoon and the sun shone down brightly. I made my way further into the woods until I found a clearing and sat down to brood over the injustices of being left in a camp I never even wanted to attend in the first place. All around me stood tall trees covered in leaves. The sounds of birds filled the air, and every now and then, a summer breeze would pass over the area. Glancing around, I noticed a pond in the clearing and thought nothing more of it as I went right back to sulking. It didn't take long, however, for me to feel goosebumps on my arms and legs, a shiver running down my spine as a sudden rush filled me, the feeling of fear. Yet, as I suddenly looked up and around for the source, there was nothing to be seen. I must have stayed in the clearing for a few more minutes before I finally went back to the camp. A little shaken, as the whole thing I sat in the clearing, I kept getting a horrible feeling of dread with no logical reasoning behind it. That night, I had a terrible nightmare. I was submerged in the freezing water and gasping for breath as something dragged me down into the depths, kicking and squirming as I felt my lungs literally explode in my chest, as murky water clouded my vision and unbearable cold surrounded my every being. I woke up to find myself dripping in a cold sweat and staring into pitch darkness. I was amazed that I hadn't screamed. Yet, my heart was racing and fear consumed me for the remainder of the night. The following day, I endured the usual tasks of camp, and although the taunt and bickering weren't as bad as usual, I still didn't mingle very much with the other kids. Soon, I found myself drifting back to the clearing I had visited the previous day. This time, however, I felt myself drawn towards the pond, staring at the water, which seemed to be strange, almost akin to ink despite the sun shining down from above. Despite every bit of sense dictating otherwise, I found myself kneeling down and extending my hand out, as if I was in a trance, dipping into the water and feeling an instant rush of icy cold against my skin. Instantly, I tried to pull my hand out only to find myself grabbed by something in the pond. Barely able to let out a cry of horror as my nightmare took on a horrific reality, as my vision was clouded by murky water and the freezing cold assaulted my body, flailing madly as I tried to break free. Luckily for me, the camp staff that day must not have been completely incompetent, because before I could succumb to the shock of the cold, I found myself pulled out of the pond by a large man who quickly began to attend to me as he called on others for help. I never dared to speak about being dragged in. As far as the camp was concerned, I had strayed away from the group and slipped into the pond. My parents were informed, and both they and the staff labeled me as irresponsible and lucky to be alive. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but you'd be wrong. Every night I experienced the same horrible nightmares of drowning in icy waters, of being dragged into the dark abyss, and every time I awaken, I'm in a cold sweat. Most disturbing, for me anyway, is that every time I find myself near a pool of water, be it a swimming pool, a pond, or even a bath, I keep getting a sense of terror. So bad, I shake and try as I may to brave it. The moment I touch the water, a wave of icy cold fills my body, and I instantly flee, expecting something to grab me. My parents think that this is some sort of traumatic stress and have begun to arrange for me to see a therapist. But I still wanted to share this with you because I wanted to warn you. I wanted to make sure that people know when they're advised to stay in groups, not to wander off, and you should really listen. You never know what could be waiting for you.
Well, that wraps up today's interesting show. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode, and sorry for my absence. Also, special thanks to Sandman for joining me this evening. If you guys want to give his channel a visit, I highly suggest you do. He has a variety of content that is absolutely spectacular. I'll link his info in the description below. But that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in, and tune back in next Sunday joining us as Possessed Radio. My name is Arbuckle.
And my name's the Sandman.
Signing off.